and it really scares me. And then our mentors. Another thing that we do is with our teens is they go through our programs, they learn a lot of skills. This is an 80-foot long, 20-foot high mural. And what we do is we give the media to them, and their question for this one was, okay, how do you portray your community in a visual image? That's what they had to come up with. They came up with the ideas. When we had to present it to the community and the funders and stuff like that, we didn't stand up there, we just pushed them out there. Oh, and you want to see them, I mean, they're literally like that, you know. But they get up there and they can do it, and they learn that. Just like when we, you know, and they came up with this idea, and it's fairly generic, people and stuff, and things like that, and that's all them and their friends and stuff on there, and our community. You can see that this is fairly large, there's scaffolding there, and this whole process, and by the way, you can see the process if you come and visit us, and you can see how we use math and stuff like that. But at the same time, if they got to learn to paint, painting is a skill. You know, you can get a summer job as a painter. So you can see here, these are all these kids working on the mural, but they're learning how to paint a house. That's where they learn the skills, you know? How do you use a roller? How do you use a brush? How do you stay focused on what you're doing? Are you spacing out? Are you getting together? And then we have all our college students with a group of 3 or 4 working side by side and sort of like giving them feedback about how they're working. This is our second one. And it's on the other side of the racquetball courts. And you can see how their skills have improved, but also their ideas have improved. And they discussed this one for about 3 months, actually 3.5 months, trying to figure out how can they portray their community as a visual image. And they had major debates, major discussions, disagreements and stuff. And finally, after a period of time, one of the boys said, you know, what we've been really talking about is women in our lives. And somebody said, yeah, that's right. And the role of women in our lives. And so they decided to do one about the life cycle of women. And so you can see on one side, and there's a little bit more, there's a playground with young girls, and young mothers, grandmothers, and eventually, to complete the cycle, the pregnant woman again. And what happened, and then they thought that this isn't just about Sulphur Springs, it's about all of Tampa. If you know Tampa, all that, you can see the big building there and some of the landmarks of Tampa, which is a very complex kind of way of thinking of it. And the title of the mural is this. A guy came up to me while we were painting it, and he was really upset that there was no men on there. And he said, where are all the men? And I said, exactly. And that's the title of the mural. And that's exactly the question that they wanted somebody to ask. By the way, these have been up for a number of years. They have never been marked or anything. And they're great for the pride. I've gone there one day, there was this people doing this rock video, and they were using them as background jobs and stuff like that. To give you an idea how we work, so anyway, we finished those murals, and we got some really great awards for that. And they wanted to do something else. And I said, well, go out in the community and ask people what they want to see. What would they like? So you can imagine what would go on is they went around in groups to ask, knock on doors, and they'd say, you know, we did those, you know those murals, blah, 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 blah. But what we want to do is something else. What would you like to see us talk about? And people would say trash or drugs or whatever, prostitution, all that kind of stuff that you would have. But we taught them how to ask questions. And when they came back, they realized that everybody said exactly the same thing in some form or another. We wish that our neighborhood, that people would talk to each other more, communicate with each other. So we decided, and then we decided how we're going to do this, and this is a sculptural message center. If you go down the interstate, you'll see a big tower. It's called the Water Tower. And so that's our Sulphur Springs. And so we created this message center. And then to get the things out, we had all the kids. We work at all ages, all the time. And that's one of the things I've learned in small-scale societies. I was sitting in a Banjar in Bali, and what happened is that I was looking at their work. They spent 50% of their living working time on ritual activity. So I went in and I was hanging out with women, and there was grandmothers and there was 2-year-olds, and every age in between, and they're all sitting there talking. It takes them about 2 or 3 weeks to prepare some offerings for those things. And it was these little dough offerings, different colored dough. Well, I'm a ceramicist and stuff, so I got in there and I started, they're amazed that I could do that, but because men don't do that work. So then they were putting it together, but I started watching, and I was listening to the interactions, and they were talking about and solving all the problems in the community. And then not only that, but what I really loved about it is, even the youngest child, they gave the youngest child, 2.5 years old, a piece of that dough, and they would smash it or do something, and they'd find a place on that offering for it. So that they were a cohesive group of people. And these kids, made all their masks and stuff like that. Another thing is our teens, when they work, this is them showing the stuff that they were selling their t-shirts and stuff like that, so that they can see that they're valuable and stuff like that, that they can learn those kinds of things. Here's the last mural. We got this through an NEA grant, and this is in Sulphur Springs. Part of that, what is now Sulphur Springs, used to be a black community in Spring Hill. And that community was destroyed when the interstate went through there. And during civil rights, a lot of people don't realize that interstate system was used as a vehicle to break apart civil rights. And almost every community, every city that they put them through was right through black communities to split them up so they wouldn't have cohesion. And this is, and by the way, I'm not making this up. It came out of when they started releasing, the Freedom of Information Acts. You can see the discussions, and you can hear the discussions about how this is used. So what we did is we took our teens into meeting these people that grew up at that time and finding out what did they want to see, to communicate to them. And that's one way that we work. I work as an art facilitator. I'm not the artist. I'm an art facilitator to help people in a community create the art that occupies their space. So the kids came back and they wanted to have their legacy. So this is what that is, of education and stuff. And we're a volunteer organization, almost 100%. We give, I think last year close to $50,000 in volunteer hours to our community. And this is one group from USF that was out. Another thing is cleaning up. Community service is such a great thing. Here we are cleaning up the river, pulling out these things. But what happens is with these grocery carts that are thrown in the river, they come out and all of a sudden we can turn them into a biology lesson because there's all these mussels on there. You see how everything is contaminated? You don't go, oh, that's a, because you pull it out, oh, look how ugly it is. No, look at how wonderful it is. Look, there's all these mollusks and stuff, and little plants and things on there. This is some of the shows that we take them to. And so they're in these art shows. This is at USF. Here's Shaniqua with some of her paintings and stuff that you can see up there. So these kids are actually, this is one of Shaniqua's things. This is a textile, but it's a poem. And she's a poet, but we took her and we got her to start working it out, making it a visual image. And you can see some of the floats and stuff in the background, that sort of thing that spirals around, was one of my graduate students wanted to do a needlepoint thing with kids. And she got those little things in needlepoint, and it was too hard for her. But somebody had given us a bunch of fabrics. And so I cut off a 6-foot length of chain link fence, and they put it all through there. The reason I'm telling you that is when you come up to see us, I'll show you where it went from there. And we just build on everything that's happening. And also, this is something at one of their shows. We had a student that wanted to make some money. I need some money. And so Mike said, go out to the street corner and just do an airbending and put out a hat. He said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I'll never trust you again. So he got the group of kids to do an airbending. They went to downtown Tampa. They did all the things, picking it out, did all that. They got $37. And then he was like, okay, we're sold on it. And so then this is a giant squirrel. It's like 8 feet tall and made out of paper mache. They made all the instruments out of cardboard and stuff, and the drum set is all out of cardboard, and they had a great time doing that. They also will go to reading things for their poetry and stuff, because remember, poetry, writing and stuff, it's all forms of art. And just to give you an idea how this works, how powerful art is, and remember, it works for adults, even if they forget or don't understand how powerful it is. This is part of a mural that's on the entranceway to Scepter Elementary School. And this is done by 1st through 5th grade students or special students. And so what I did is I went in there, every one of those rectangles is the size of a cement block. And what we did is we went around, and the way that we approach things is that I took entranceways from how around the world people used entranceways, to mosques, to churches, to whatever. And they really liked what was happening in Western Africa There's women that will paint with these types of colors, real cool lines and stuff, you know, the family compound. So that's what they wanted to do. And then to make it personal, we started to get them to think about the environment that they live in and stuff, and then to get a plant and animal and use that on there. And so every one of these is what that is. And then the class as a whole, based on the molus and stuff like that, did the centerpiece. And I love these butterflies and hands and snakes and stuff. And these are all like first through fifth grade special students. And actually, if you look in much of the world at folk art and stuff like that, you wouldn't know that. You would just think it's like some real skilled folk artist. But this is first graders, fifth graders, special students. Butterflies and stuff there's based on the mola. I love this first grader's turtle, so I have to show that. Then also, this is fourth through fifth grades, and this is a public art piece that I got at in Ruskin, and I used 3 of the elementary schools there. And what we did is we went into the school, like this is from Ruskin, and I went into the thing, and we were going to work with the teachers on culture. What is culture? And we went in there, we had such a hard time. Nobody could get culture until I said, hey, you know, do you like music and dance? And they go, yeah. And they said, well, that's culture. And then they got it. You see, so notice we are always teaching about culture, but then we don't have anything that relates to them, you know? So once you find something that relates to them, then you can do it. Another one is, another school was studying the environment. This alligator is this big. Those are raised tiles, and they painted them and built those things in the classroom and cut them up. Those fish are almost life-size. But this is where they're coming back. They're doing this. Once they realized it was music and dance, look at what they did. They got their boombox in there, the dancing shoes, and now look at the use of lines and color in there. You just had the experience a little while ago about how we did it. And this one was another one that I did in Campbell Park, which is in St. Petersburg, similar community. And we went around and interviewed people. This is the director of the community center and for a new gymnasium. And we asked them, why do you do this? You know, why do you do it? And they said, the kids support us. So we have all these hands under them. Those are life-size things of a kid shooting a basketball. This is a basketball gymnasium, which is the earth, and she's trying to block it for leading. But then I had them, you know the idea of a hand? People put handprints. You see it all over the world. Handprints, I am. That's why your handprints. I am. Right? You got the little ones and the kids. And in school, you see them in old cave paintings and stuff like that. So I had this, the middle school, all the kids made their hands, but they had to communicate about themselves. And let me see if this one is here. In this one right here, if you look, in this area, this kid kept coming up to me, and you know, they had to do their drawings first. He kept coming with a life-size hand, and he said, and he had the yin-yang symbol. I said, oops, I'm supposed to think I'm talking over here. They had the yin-yang symbol, and I said, you can't use a religious symbol. You know, so go back and do something again. He came back to me with the yin-yang symbol. He did that, and I said, I already told you you can't do it, so he did it the third time. And he came back, and I said, okay, why do you want to use the yin-yang symbol? And he said, well, I grew up in Bosnia during the war, and I have 15 friends that I never will see again. And we used to go around to the buildings and put the yin-yang symbol on the buildings because we wanted peace. I said, you can do it, but you got to make it your own. And so he made 15 dots in the center for his friends, and he made the cracked yin-yang symbol, and then the cracks of his hands. You see how powerful? That's pretty powerful communication for somebody in middle school.